Good morning, RB Community Church, and anybody else that might be joining us on the internet. I've got a little bit of a funny story, but also just like a glimpse into who I am. I am not the biggest control freak ever, but I am one of those people that when it comes to directions, as in like driving directions, I want to know what the best option is. So for for those of you that have that debate as to whether or not this way is faster, this way is faster, I'll give you a glimpse. I'm a systems perfecter, as in I like to do the same thing repeatedly until I get it exactly how I think it's best, kind of experimental, guess and check, change variables, things like that. So the last house that I lived at had two different routes that you could take to get there, and actually had three different routes. But the third route was if you were coming from the other direction, which wasn't really for me going to or from work. So I came up with this plan where I was going to drive one way 10 times and time it every time. And then I was going to drive the other way 10 times, time it every time, and then look at the variables as which way was faster. So I learned that on average, I could save 3 or 4 seconds, which I know is insignificant in the small picture, but I lived in that house for 10 years, so five plus times a week for 10 years, 3 seconds actually saves you quite a bit of time. And then the other one, this one drives me nuts though. For those of you that live in the Poway, Rancho Bernardo, Carmel Mountain area, for me the biggest debate, this was between my dad and I, is which way was faster in Carmel Mountain to get to that little area where there's the In-N-Out and the Chick-fil-A, right? When you're coming from Rancho Bernardo on Carmel Mountain Road, or not Carmel Mountain Road, but was it Bernardo, whatever that road is, Rancho Bernardo, coming from Rancho Bernardo High School or Bernardo Heights, do you turn right at the Costco and go down by the post office and then turn left in the parking lot to the movie theater? Or do you continue to go straight all the way and then turn right into the shopping center right by the Taco Bell, and then you're there? And it's like, it was one of those like debated things that my dad always thought one way was faster, I always thought the other way was faster. But the reality of it is neither way is faster. We figured out, through repetition and testing, it's a coin flip, right, as to which one's the better option. So stuff like that drives me nuts. I want there to be a better way. But the reason I thought about talking about this today is because last night I had a dream, and the dream was a friend of mine and I, and this is what makes it interesting, is like, this isn't like a specific friend. It wasn't like, oh, I was with my buddy Dan, or I was with my buddy Richie, or I was with my buddy Chris. This was like, I was just with my friend. Like, looking back, I don't even actually know who this guy was. It was just a random person, but he was my friend in this dream. And we were driving to go get Indian food, and we just could not stop arguing over the better route to get there. So in the dream, we never even got Indian food. What a bummer, because I love Indian food. But we were constantly just arguing over whose directions were better, who should be in control, who knows what's best, right? So this morning I was thinking, like, yes, I know I've got some control issues, and I'm guessing some of you have some control issues too. But do we ever let our desire to be in control get in the way of what we should be doing, or even what God has called us to do? So for those of you that knew my background in school, like especially in middle school, I was a perfectionist, and my policy was if I couldn't make it perfect, I didn't want to do it, right? I would do homework assignments and I didn't feel like they were perfect, so I just wouldn't bother turning them in. It's like I would rather take a 0 than face imperfection. I've gotten over that, as you guys know. I do lots of imperfect things now, but I moved past that. But that was a season of my life. It's like I wanted to control it. I wanted everything to be perfect. You couldn't get me to do something that's not perfect. But we're in this situation where a lot of us are stuck at home still. We don't know what the future is going to look like. And for people that want to be in control, this is driving us nuts, right? I want to be in control of my life. I don't want the government to tell me when I can and can't go outside, right? I don't want my parents to tell me you're not allowed to go hang out with your friends. Like, we don't like being told what to do, right? So for those of you that like being in control, this is a difficult season, right? But I love the there's a couple passages in scripture, and they're short, just excerpts, and it's kind of addressing the fact that, one, we like to be in control, but two, ultimately God is in control, and we need to take what we're doing and we need to submit them to Him, right? So everybody's heard the verse, Jeremiah 29:11. It says, "For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to give you a future and a hope," right? And it's saying God has plans for you, right? And the reality of it is, like, God has plans for me, but I've got plans for me too, right? The concept of, I want to be in control of my life. I want to be the author of my story, right? But the reality of it is, God is at work writing our story now. I love this. This is not scripture, but this is just a joke that people say. If you want to hear God laugh, tell Him your plans, right? And a lot of times we have these great plans, and sometimes a wrench gets thrown in it, and we have to change, and we have to adapt, and we have to be flexible, right? There's no such thing as a perfect human plan, right? We can plan all we want, but in the end, there's variables we just can't even um, comprehend. Like I told you, I drove this route 10 times, I drove this route 10 times, and what's to say one time I happen to take the route that's typically faster and there's a car accident, right? Or the constant variable we always deal with traffic is like, do I turn right here if there's a red light, or do I go straight and that way we'll be faster, right? There's always variables in there, right? And I also love, there's a passage in Proverbs 16:9, that says, "In his heart a man plans his course, but the Lord determines his steps." Right? God has designed each of us with a unique heart, with unique desires to um, to do things. Right? Some of the stuff that brings me great joy, you might think this is the most boring thing in the world, but I love it, and God has created in me a heart to love it. So He wants me to pursue things that I'm passionate about. Right? But in the end, I have to follow God's steps. It's not I get to do whatever I want. I have to follow where God leads me, right? And then there's the other thing, that not just uh, God gave us a heart to do these things, but He also gave us a mind, right? God gave you a powerful mind. It's a tool that you can use in order to accomplish those things that you set out to do. But the important thing is remembering that we want to be in control, but we have to submit all of these things to God. We have to let Him be in control. And for us right now, and the leadership of our church, we've spent a lot of time thinking about, how do we reopen after coronavirus settles down? What's the best way to move forward? And what makes it so difficult is, we can plan all we want. We can be as prepared as possible, but there's no such thing as a perfect plan. But God does call us to strive to do the best that we can. So we're trying our best to be responsible with the situation that we're in. So for those of you that, I've heard a lot of students have had a ton of schoolwork lately, being responsible and diligent, because this is where God has us now. This is not where God will have us forever, but this is where He has us now. And it's all about being faithful in this moment, right? It's not planning about being faithful in 5 years. It's not about, oh, I'll be. One of the things that's really common is people, like, they go through a phase of life, and then, like, they hit their 30s and they become my age, and then all of a sudden they start going to church, right? That's fine. That's not that that's a bad thing. God does want us to be part of a faith community, but it's about being faithful now with the situation that you're in. So for those of you guys that are struggling to be in control, struggling um, to do things your way, I challenge you. Is there something in your life right now that you have control over, right? You have control over what you're doing throughout the day. Can you submit that to God? I hope to see you guys soon. Love you. Can't wait for us to be together. Bye.